It's a warm, heavy morning in the divorce court. The smell of sterile, cold paperwork fills the air, but there's a tension in the room, an undeniable weight. As the black woman steps into the courtroom, her eyes are fixed, her heart racing. This isn't just any divorce. It's the battle for dignity, the battle for justice. The room is thick with a history that's often been overlooked, gender bias, race discrimination, and the weight of emotional betrayal. Her ex-husband sits across from her, a man who once promised love and fidelity, now standing as the antagonist in her personal story. The walls of the courtroom feel suffocating as their shared past echoes in the silence. The judge, a white man, surveys the room, ready to impart his ruling. But the question remains, will the justice she seeks be delivered? Or will this case become another reminder of how the legal system sometimes fails those who need it most? This isn't just about the dissolution of a marriage. It's about what's at stake when trust is broken and the scales of justice are tilted. A betrayal of love is painful, but a betrayal of justice is something altogether different. In a world where the intersection of race and gender often complicates court rulings, this case is about more than the woman's personal pain. It's about questioning a system that might never have been designed for her. For every black woman who has felt invisible in a courtroom, for every person who's witnessed a bias-laden ruling, this case stands as a symbol of the fight for fairness. The stakes are high, and the outcome could be transformative, both personally for her and for the broader narrative about race, gender, and the law. But there are twists here, surprises the audience may not expect. The courtroom isn't just a place for decisions. It's a stage where a battle is waged, not just for a legal ruling, but for dignity, fairness, and the right to be heard. The tension in the room thickens as the black woman takes the stand. The weight of her emotions, anger, confusion, and deep-seated hurt clings to her like a heavy cloak. This isn't just a courtroom. It's the battleground where she confronts the man who once promised to love her, the man who broke that promise in the most devastating way. She steadies her breath, but each word she speaks carries the pain of years of broken trust. Her testimony begins, and the room falls silent. "I loved him," she says, her voice barely above a whisper, but powerful in its sincerity. "I gave him everything, and he betrayed me in ways I can't even describe." The words land with an emotional weight, piercing through the cold, clinical atmosphere of the court. The judge, seated high above her, appears unmoved. His pen scratches across his notepad, but his eyes never fully leave the document in front of him. It's hard to know what he's really thinking, but the way he shifts his gaze occasionally toward her ex-husband gives a subtle clue. Does he believe him? Does he doubt her? Her ex-husband's defense is cold and calculated. He stands firm, offering excuses for his actions, trying to minimize the betrayal. "It was just a mistake," he claims. "It wasn't meant to happen." His words hang in the air, dismissive of the emotional devastation he's caused. He insists that it was an isolated incident, that there's nothing more to be said. But her pain isn't just about an affair. It's about a deep, systemic betrayal of trust, not just in their marriage, but in a society that consistently marginalizes women like her. The emotional toll on her is undeniable. It's not just the cheating that's left her fractured. It's the humiliation that comes with being publicly wronged, the constant questioning of her worth. Has she not given enough? What does it say about her when someone she loved can so easily break that bond? The anger and hurt run deeper than the infidelity itself. It's the idea that her trust, her humanity, was taken for granted. And yet, she's here in a courtroom, forced to defend herself against someone who was minimizing the gravity of what he did to her. But the real battle isn't just between her and her ex-husband. It's with the legal system that often doesn't understand her pain. The judge, a white man who might never fully grasp the depth of her struggle, sits on the other side of this emotional divide. In the sterile neutrality of the courtroom, is he capable of seeing the nuances of race and gender in this case? Does he understand how deeply rooted these issues are, Or will he simply make his decision based on what he believes to be fair and just, without considering the systemic biases that might color his judgment? There's a particular weight she feels when she looks at him. Is he taking her seriously? Is he aware of the emotional cost of what's at stake here? She knows that the system was never built for people like her. Black women who often find themselves navigating a world that doesn't always see them as equal. Will he rule in her favor? Or will his judgment be swayed by unconscious biases, by a lifetime of seeing the world from a vantage point that doesn't reflect the struggle she's faced? The courtroom, too, is full of spectators, onlookers who whisper about the case, passing judgment on the couple's personal life as if they have a say in the matter. The media, too, has been drawn to this case, covering it with all the drama of a high-profile scandal. Public opinion, swayed by sensational headlines, adds another layer of complexity. Some see this case as a simple matter of a cheating husband facing consequences. But for her, it's about more than that. It's about holding the man accountable for his actions, but also for the system that too often lets women down. The racial dynamics in the courtroom can't be ignored. For many, the biases that have been entrenched in society for centuries seep into the decisions made in these legal proceedings. The black woman, forced to navigate this system, is left questioning. Will the court understand the full extent of her pain, or will it simply be another case of a marginalized voice being drowned out by the dominant one? This is a courtroom, yes, but it's also a microcosm of a larger societal issue, one in which black women's voices have often been overlooked, their pain minimized, their experiences rendered invisible. Can justice be truly served when the scales are tipped by bias? When the system is built on unequal foundations? These questions loom as the case unfolds. The emotional, mental, and societal weight of this divorce is more than just a matter of the law. It's a reckoning with the past and a challenge to the future. The proceedings take an unexpected turn. As the black woman recounts her experiences, something shifts in her. The surface-level pain of betrayal begins to evolve into a more profound understanding of the battle she's fighting, not just against her ex-husband, but against a system designed to make her feel powerless. The case isn't merely about proving infidelity. It's about uncovering deeper layers of injustice that affect her not only as a woman, but as a black woman in a society that often doesn't take her pain seriously. Her lawyer, a sharp-minded black woman herself, becomes the strategic force behind their investigation. She digs into every document, every text message, every email, seeking evidence that will expose the full extent of the betrayal and, more importantly, highlight the systemic injustice in play. What starts as a routine discovery phase soon reveals that there is more at stake than anyone anticipated. The pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place. During the investigation, they uncover new details about her ex-husband's financial dealings and how he had hidden assets during the divorce proceedings. Her lawyer, with the help of a private investigator, also finds a series of intimate messages exchanged between the ex-husband and his mistress, which show a deliberate pattern of deception. But the key moment, the one that shakes her to her core, happens when they discover that her ex-husband had manipulated legal documents to protect his wealth, all while keeping her in the dark about their financial situation during their marriage. The emotional toll on the black woman becomes even more pronounced. These revelations aren't just about betrayal. They are about a long-standing manipulation, about the ways in which she was treated as inferior in her own relationship. It forces her to confront uncomfortable truths about how she was dismissed and silenced not only by her husband, but by a broader system that often undervalues the experiences of black women. As the discovery phase continues, the black woman starts to feel both empowered and overwhelmed. She is uncovering truths that she had never wanted to face, but they are the same truths that may bring justice. The emotional breakthrough is powerful. She realizes that the fight is not just for her marriage, but for her dignity, her financial stability, and her ability to trust in a system that has so often failed people like her. However, not all the discoveries strengthen her resolve. Doubts begin to creep in. As the case gets deeper into the legal weeds, she wonders, will the judge even care about these discoveries? Will the legal system, with all its biases, see her as a credible witness? Or will she simply be another woman whose testimony is dismissed? Her ex-husband's lawyer, a slick-talking defense attorney, attempts to discredit the new evidence by suggesting it's irrelevant or obtained improperly. There are moments of tension where she fears everything could unravel, where she doubts whether her pursuit of justice will ever come to fruition. This is where the systemic battle becomes even more apparent. The black woman is not only fighting for a fair divorce settlement, but is also pushing back against the deep biases ingrained in the legal system. The courtroom is a microcosm of the larger societal issues of race and gender. During the investigation, expert testimony begins to shine a light on the ways in which the legal system is designed to work against her. A sociologist who specializes in gender studies is called to testify about how the judicial system historically treats black women in divorce cases. She explains that studies show black women often receive less favorable settlements and are frequently perceived as angry or uncooperative in their demands for justice. The testimony is a wake-up call for the courtroom. The room grows tense as the expert speaks with the authority of years of academic research. She outlines how black women in divorce cases, particularly those involving affluent or well-connected ex-husbands, often face a biased legal system that tends to favor the wealthier and more powerful individual, the white male in this instance. Her insights expose the cracks in the system and add an undeniable layer of complexity to the case. One key moment occurs when her lawyer, recognizing the systemic nature of the fight, decides to focus not just on the details of the betrayal, but on the larger racial and gendered implications of the case. She calls upon a legal expert who discusses the systemic discrimination in divorce rulings, pointing out that in many jurisdictions, the courts are not trained to deal with the intersection of race and gender in ways that adequately serve people of color. This expert, a well-respected black woman attorney, presents a case study of how the divorce industry tends to treat minority women as less credible in emotionally charged cases involving infidelity, often minimizing their experiences and dismissing their emotional trauma. The black woman watches from the stand as the expert's words slowly begin to shift the tone in the courtroom. Her ex-husband's defense starts to waver, and the judge, though still stern, is beginning to show signs of questioning his own bias. It is here in these moments of revelation that the true emotional breakthrough occurs for her, not because she has exacted revenge, but because she realizes that she is no longer simply a woman broken by betrayal. She is now an advocate not just for her own justice, but for the millions of other black women who have been silenced by the system. The investigation has revealed the full scope of the fight. What started as a personal betrayal has now become a systemic battle, one that has far-reaching implications for how black women are treated in the legal system. She no longer feels alone in this fight. It is a fight for fairness, for equal treatment, and for justice, not just in her case, but for countless others who will come after her. The courtroom is electric with anticipation. The black woman sits at the edge of her seat, her heart pounding as the judge prepares to deliver his ruling. It's the culmination of months of emotional turmoil, investigative breakthroughs, and intense courtroom drama. All eyes are on the judge, his gaze unwavering as he slowly reads the decision that could change everything, for her, for the ex-husband, and for the system itself. The courtroom falls silent as the judge's voice echoes through the room. The verdict comes as a shock. In a ruling that strikes a balance between legal precedent and personal sentiment, the judge acknowledges the grave emotional and financial impact of the ex-husband's actions. He rules that she is entitled to a significant portion of their marital assets, including a lump sum settlement that will ensure her financial security. Her ex-husband is ordered to pay alimony, albeit in a reduced amount than she had hoped for, but a step in the right direction nonetheless. However, the ruling is not without its complications. The judge, in a carefully worded statement, also critiques the way the legal system tends to favor the wealthy and powerful, inadvertently marginalizing women of color in divorce cases. He points out that systemic biases have been at play throughout this trial and encourages further reform in how divorce cases, particularly those involving marginalized communities, are handled in his courtroom. The decision is a bittersweet victory. On one hand, she has won the financial settlement she deserves. On the other, she feels a deep sense of loss, not just for her marriage, but for the decades of emotional baggage she has carried. The betrayal, the systemic inequality, and the emotional toll of the fight are not easily erased. As she exits the courtroom, she is confronted by reporters, eager to hear her take on the ruling. The media buzz is relentless, and her ex-husband's face, red with anger, flashes on the screen. But the black woman's response is measured, and her resolve is unshakable. "I didn't just fight for money," she tells the press. "I fought for my dignity, my worth, and for women like me who are often overlooked in these courtrooms. The system may not be perfect, but today we made progress." As the media storm rages on, the ruling begins to spark conversations far beyond the courtroom. The issue of race and gender in the legal system becomes a central topic in the public sphere. Advocates for marginalized communities, particularly black women, rally behind her, using her case as a springboard for wider discussions on the need for legal reform. Enter a key new character, a prominent social activist and lawyer, Dr. Tasha Grant. Dr. Grant, who has spent her career fighting for racial and gender equality within the legal system, takes an immediate interest in the case. She sees it as an opportunity to push for legislative change, arguing that while individual rulings can have a positive impact, systemic change is needed to ensure fair treatment for women of color in divorce and family law cases. Dr. Grant reaches out to the black woman, offering to work together to transform her legal victory into a broader movement. The two women join forces, with Dr. Grant leveraging her network of lawmakers, legal experts, and community leaders to press for policy changes that would hold the justice system accountable for its implicit biases. Through grassroots campaigning, media appearances, and legal conferences, they begin to lay the groundwork for new reforms that would require judges to undergo mandatory sensitivity training on race and gender bias. They also push for a nationwide review of how divorce settlements are awarded to women of color, with the aim of ensuring that they are treated fairly and equally under the law. While the legal victory may seem modest, the ripple effects are profound. The case becomes a catalyst for change, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about race and gender in the courtroom. The black woman finds herself at the forefront of a movement she never anticipated. The pain of betrayal, the emotional scars from her marriage, and the arduous battle in the courtroom are transformed into a platform for social justice. Her newfound role as a symbol of resistance and empowerment grows as she gives speeches at community gatherings and events, sharing her story not as a victim, but as a woman who overcame systemic oppression and fought back. "I didn't win just for myself," she says in one of her speeches. "I won for every woman of color who has ever been silenced by a system that was never built for us. This fight, this victory, is for all of us." The ruling may not have been the complete justice she had hoped for, but it is a clear acknowledgement that the system is broken. And that acknowledgement leads to tangible change. Her ex-husband, in the aftermath, continues his fight in the press, attempting to salvage his reputation. But the black woman's victory is not defined by the battle with him. It is defined by her role in the larger movement for justice. The transformation is personal and societal. The black woman undergoes a metamorphosis from a woman deeply hurt by betrayal to a trailblazer who redefines what justice can look like. The emotional toll of the trial, the weight of being a black woman in a predominantly white legal system, and the scars of her past relationship are slowly replaced with a sense of purpose and strength. Her transformation is not immediate. There are days when the weight of her past feels too much to bear, but over time, she begins to heal, knowing that her actions have created an opening for real change. The trial itself becomes a touchstone in discussions about the intersection of race, gender, and justice. Scholars, activists, and even legal practitioners point to the case as an example of how individual battles can spark wider systemic change. The ruling, while imperfect, sets a precedent for future cases, making it clear that courts can no longer ignore the ways in which race and gender shape the outcomes of legal disputes. And while the system may never be entirely free of bias, this case represents the beginning of a much-needed conversation about fairness and equity in the courtroom. As the Black woman's case becomes a symbol of resistance, she finds strength not only in the legal victory, but in the knowledge that her fight has sparked a movement, one that will carry forward, touching the lives of countless others who will benefit from the changes she helped bring about. Her journey is not over, but it has shifted from one of personal survival to one of societal transformation. Months have passed since the courtroom drama unfolded, but the ripples of the Black woman's case continue to echo across the legal landscape, changing not only the trajectory of her life, but also reshaping perceptions of race, gender, and justice in society. In the quiet of her new apartment, she sits at her kitchen table, sipping coffee, reflecting on how far she's come since the battle for justice began. In the aftermath of the trial, her emotional transformation has been nothing short of profound. The pain and anger that once consumed her have shifted into a deep sense of clarity and purpose. Healing has not been a linear path, and there are still moments where the weight of the past feels overwhelming. Yet, there is a resilience within her now, a strength born from her struggle and victory. She has found peace in knowing that her fight has been instrumental in bringing long overdue attention to the intersection of race and gender within the legal system. The societal validation she once sought from external sources is no longer her primary concern. Now, she seeks it from within. She has taken time to rebuild her life, focusing on self-care, rebuilding relationships with friends and family, and investing in personal growth. Therapy has become a vital part of her journey, helping her unpack years of emotional weight and teaching her how to set healthy boundaries moving forward. She's begun to understand that the emotional scars left by her ex-husband's betrayal aren't just about him. They're about the broader societal structures that continue to place women, especially women of color, at a disadvantage. These realizations have led her to work on projects that advocate for mental health in marginalized communities, as well as supporting organizations that focus on helping women regain their voices and financial independence after toxic relationships. Her future, once clouded by the trauma of her divorce and the bitterness of her fight in court, now seems filled with potential. Her newfound sense of self-worth allows her to explore career opportunities that once felt out of reach. She begins speaking at conferences and writing articles, sharing her journey with others, and using her voice to encourage others who are still caught in the webs of systemic oppression. What started as a personal battle has become a larger mission to address the complex intersectionality that Black women often face in both their personal lives and in the court system. But beyond her personal growth, the long-term impact of the case extends far beyond the individual. The ruling, though not perfect, was a catalyst for change in the judicial system. As Dr. Tasha Grant and other activists continue to push for reform, the conversation surrounding gender and racial biases in family law begins to gain traction. Legislative changes, while slow, start to emerge. In the wake of the ruling, states begin to review how divorce settlements are handled for women of color, acknowledging that the legal system's assumptions have long been shaped by historical and racial inequalities. Bills are introduced to mandate implicit bias training for judges and to ensure that divorce courts consider the economic disparities faced by Black women when awarding alimony and asset distribution. The case becomes a rallying point for a broader movement focused on justice reform. As the media spotlight shines on the woman's story, other women come forward, sharing their experiences of bias in divorce courts and legal systems that have failed them. Social media platforms erupt with stories and hashtags that call for change, and grassroots campaigns begin to take shape, focusing on issues ranging from equitable alimony distributions to the need for more Black women in legal professions. The woman's trial sparks a collective awakening, creating space for others to demand the fairness and respect that they have long been denied. Her legal victory, though deeply personal, transcends her individual case. It becomes a symbol of the fight for justice, not just for women of color, but for all marginalized groups who have been denied a voice in the legal system. The systemic changes that slowly begin to take place are a testament to the power of one individual's struggle to ignite broader social transformation. In the years that follow, the Black woman continues to be an advocate, appearing on talk shows and in documentaries, sharing her story with an ever-expanding audience. She's become not just a symbol of survival, but of empowerment. Her words inspire countless women, particularly Black women, to confront the injustices they face head-on. She helps to establish a network of support groups for those navigating similar battles in the legal system, offering guidance, mentorship, and encouragement. Through her efforts, more women find the strength to fight for their dignity, their financial independence, and their rights in the face of systemic injustice. As she sits on a panel discussing her case, a question is posed to her. What would you say to someone who is just beginning their fight for justice? She takes a deep breath, her smile warm but knowing. I would say, don't lose hope. The fight is hard, and it's never just about you. It's about your community. It's about your children. It's about generations to come. But in the end, fighting for what's right will always be worth it. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for all of us. The question lingers in the air long after the panel concludes. It is a reflection of her journey, of how, through all the pain, the sacrifice, and the injustice, she found not just a legal victory, but a way to impact the world for good. The long-term impact of this case on society is undeniable. It has shifted perceptions about the way race and gender influence legal outcomes. It has sparked conversations about bias in the judicial system and has forced people to confront uncomfortable truths. It has shown that true justice doesn't come easily. It requires perseverance, courage, and, at times, sacrifice. But the most profound impact is perhaps the way this case has empowered a generation of women to challenge a system that has long ignored their voices. It has opened the door to future legislative reforms, ensuring that Black women and other marginalized communities will no longer be silenced in divorce court. The impact of her struggle reaches far beyond the walls of the courtroom, setting the stage for a future in which justice can no longer be denied simply because of race, gender, or social status. As the Black woman looks ahead, she knows that the fight for justice is far from over. But she also knows that she is not alone. The echoes of her case will continue to reverberate, creating a lasting legacy of change for future generations. She has not only transformed her own life, but has become a beacon of hope and empowerment for those still fighting similar battles. And with that, her chapter in this long, ongoing fight is far from finished, but it has undoubtedly begun a new and brighter phase.